94.5 WTAW.
It's the Infomaniacs on a Wednesday. We visit with the mayors on Wednesday, and John Nichols here this morning. How are you this morning?
I'm fine. A little chilly, but there's no snow flying out there, so for a New York boy, this is not bad.
Yeah, that's it. We were discussing ahead of time since you went to school up in Cornell, and that there's plenty of snow up there, but not our ways. This morning, I want to talk a little bit about some information that's been released on TexAgs. TexAgs is something that most people probably are aware of, where they have different areas where they chat about things, and Aggie Land is one of those. And some discussion has always been about the things that the city of College Station does, but we had what I would call a data drop last Friday because an open records request was answered by the city of College Station, and we suddenly saw ink on paper the kind of things that had gone on behind the scenes that maybe we didn't understand. For that reason, I do want to have you, because you are the only member of council who was part of that council that purchased this building back in 2022. So with that in mind, would like to have you address some things this morning that might be that were brought up on TexAgs. The first thing they said was that the narrative was false in that you were needing to buy Macy's so that a storage facility might not go in there, when in fact that would be a very hard thing to accomplish because CBL had contracts with people that would not allow something like a storage unit. So address that if you would.
Well, if you remember that the property was owned by somebody else when we bought it. It wasn't owned by CBL. It never was. It was owned by Macy's. So there's a difference right there. I think you have to go back a little bit further and look at the real genesis of this project or this activity on the part of the city. We have been hearing from citizens, and I know I had during that time every planning meeting that encompassed the kind of the comprehensive plan or related sorts of things. There was a strong sentiment across the community that the mall was dying. It's a great asset for the community. It's in a great location. Somebody has to do something to re-energize the mall. So from my perspective, the reason the city got involved in this was that we needed to see if there was some way that we could help CBL find partners that would re-energize the mall. And so our original intent, and we've been talking to the mall before, and the owners of the Macy building earlier, and frankly, when we were going to buy it, at the original sale time, we realized that there was another company out of California that was interested in buying it with something that looked like it might make a difference there. So we stayed out of it. We backed out of it. We got involved then when that company, for internal reasons, folded and decided to put it back on the market again. So we were still very much interested in that, not only as a way to stimulate some changes in development of the mall, but also as a recreation center. At that point, the university had not come into the discussion. The university came in after the fact, after we had bought it. So that was a real purpose behind getting into it. Yes, there was discussion about some opportunities for a storage building being built there, and that was one of the statements that was put forward. But that wasn't the reason for buying it. The reason for buying it was we need, as a city, to really take a strategic position here. And I want to just talk a little bit about this idea of strategy. We are a city that is extremely well run, a relatively low tax rate, relatively low number of employees per thousand capita. We're running a very good, high-quality set of services. The city is running really well. Occasionally, cities need to take some strategic positions, and this is simply a strategic decision on the part of the city.
Okay.
As was Chimney Hill in its day, and I know people are bringing back up,
right.
But that's not the case.
But these people who bought Macy's was a distress all over America.
Right.
These people bought Macy's not only here but other places, and they bought this for $3.5 million in January of 22. 6 months later, the city of College Station pays $4 more million than that. How in the world do we justify? They couldn't make it a going concern, yet we decide to spend $4 million more on this same facility, not really knowing exactly what's going to happen to it. Why is that responsible taxpayer money used?
They did not make a go of it, not because of that, but because of internal fallout in the company, as I understood it. Mm-hmm. And so they put it back on the market because it wasn't a matter of economics, it's just a matter of they decided not to pursue that agenda.
But for whatever reason, why do you pay $4 million more 6 months later?
We paid what the established appraisal was for the building, 6.5 for the whole property, including 7.5 acres. Remember that. You also got a lot of parking and other land there. That went to about $11 million because that's a very high visibility property.
But you were not in a bidding.
We paid the appraisal value.
But it's only worth that if somebody's willing to pay it. That's true in real estate everywhere.
I understand that. But if you can make a significant change in the future development of the mall by attracting other investors, and some people have argued that we were planning to buy the whole mall. That is not true.
Well, we'll go back to that in a minute.
But that's my point.
Okay,
Just
gotcha.
making that point.
Sure.
That we were trying to make a position, and we still are, that will attract larger investors to change the entire mall operation structure, the whole layout, everything. So that's why we were willing to pay the appraised value of it, because we knew it would be worth that or more in the future, and I still think that's true.
There's a question that the city, did not do due diligence with A&M, because yes, you kind of thought A&M would come over and do an esports thing. That was a great dream to have, but truth be told, and necessarily you might not have known, but it did not seem that true due diligence was done with A&M to decide, hey, are you going to come in and be a partner with us?
We stayed with A&M as long as they were talking about it. But keep in mind, that wasn't the reason we bought the building. Mm-hmm. We bought the building before they appeared and decided, hey, we want to do esports, and that was under the previous president. And that was still going on during the time of the previous president. I would say due diligence, we had an ongoing dialogue. We still have, keep in mind, our other option there is a rec center. And we're in the middle of a study for considering how to build and where to build a rec center if we want to. And that building is prime location, and the building is already in structure. We could save a lot of money if we put a rec center in there compared to building at Greenfield somewhere else.
Did see a piece of paper on College Station letterhead having to do with the costs involved in that facility as you bought it. About $1 million, a little more than $1 million, with mold remediation and other things that had to be done. Understand that there was a water leak and you had to pull carpets up, and you might not have known about that. But still, that had to be even rehabbed after you paid $4 million.
That remediation was done as part of the deal, and that was paid for as part of the deal. It was remediated by the agreement that was undertaken there. So that remediation, and you asked about cost. Mm-hmm. People have asked on TexAgs and elsewhere. Currently, it's about $20,000 a month, or about $117,000 a year for bulk of it for electricity. The HVAC system is working, not to the level probably that whatever rehab or to build whatever gets built out in there is going to need, but it's operating well to keep it in good condition currently. So those are two of the questions that people were asking.
There had certainly been interest by other people, 2 local entities who had been interested in buying. Then, as people would say, the city they scooped it up ahead of these local people who actually had hard and fast plans as to what they wanted to do with that Macy's facility. Why did the city feel like they needed to interject when you, in fact, had 2 people who were interested in the property?
Well, we had a long-term interest in it as a strategic position, and we had been having that discussion for a long time, so it was perfectly logical for us to look at it as a way to make a difference out there. In fact, we felt like we have access to people who can make a big difference there if they're prepared to come in and do it. So I'm sure there were other interested parties in this case, and I understand there were, and I think those parties probably are still interested in it to some extent.
You mentioned the entire mall in the city. You never had any interest in buying the entire mall. There was never any discussion.
But we did have an interest in buying another piece of it until CBL decided not to sell. They changed the price on us.
You did have a presentation. A company, I believe, members of the city got in touch with an out-of-town firm who actually came up with a 50-page proposal on what could be done with the building, and that was done without city council knowledge. Is that correct?
No. If you're talking about the study that was contracted for That wasn't without council knowledge. At that time, the council knew that there was a master plan, just an illustrative master plan laid out so people could see some ideas of how could this thing be changed. And it really just followed traditional models of blowing up a mall, if you want to call it that, or changing it or changing the dynamics. As I recall, that was not done without city council knowledge.
Well,
we were aware of that.
Let me read this this is from TexAgs, and
Well, okay.
this is their assertion. So you can tell me if this is right.
You're talking about assertions, not facts.
Okay, right. I'm saying. So, city staff, led by the city manager, secretly met with an architectural firm from New Braunfels before the Macy's purchase without informing city council of that meeting. Is that correct?
I have no memory of that at all. That is apparently an assertion. If you're talking about the study that was done, the council was aware that we had done or were doing a kind of a layout of what could be done with the mall and what would it look like. You do that in order to attract the outside interest and beyond our own interest in it.
Now, the city actually tried to sell this piece of property, or did you look to find a partner to come in with you in the redevelopment of this property? Were you actually trying to sell this? Because Mark Smith said that you had no takers.
Well, if you're talking about the latest latest RFP or RFB, if you want to call it that, yeah, nobody. We put it up for 30 days, listed it for bids, and nobody took it. But that doesn't mean that we haven't had conversations with people all the time about selling it, including some of the local partners. And I'm not certain that they're always going to sit on the sidelines. We'll see.
My thought is they're not going to pay $7.5 million for it.
Well, we'll have to see that. It's just, but if they can make a difference in the mall and really bring something to the mall, that will be a big difference. As far as value goes, if we put a rec center in there, we will more than recapture the original investment, and we'll have the land as well.
A rec center owned by the city?
Well, if it is, yeah, and that's sort of the direction we're talking about. The operational side, I mean, that's been talked about for years. That's not anything new. What's new is that we're now getting down to the actual discussion of how to do that if we want to do it, and the consultant study is due to come in a couple of months. So we'll have that information for us to make a decision. If we decide to put a rec center in there, that will change them all. And we will save more than $7 million in construction costs to put a rec center in that space.
As a member of council and now as mayor, as you've gone through this situation, have you in any way changed your view as to how a city should be involved in land and real estate?
No, I don't, because I understand there are people that are very principled, have always said cities should not be buying any land for anything other than operational purposes, police station, whatever it might be. I don't think that is necessarily true if you're talking about a city that is already operating at high quality, well-funded, low tax rate, good fund balance, that the city needs to be involved in economic development. And when you're involved in economic development, you take strategic positions. Every city in the country does that. There's nothing different here about that. Now, is it a building instead of greenfield land and is a business park? Yes, it is. Doesn't make any difference in terms of a portfolio of assets that the city would like to utilize as a way to stimulate our local development in an area that is absolutely prime for redevelopment. And everybody in the city has told us that when they talk in the abstract. When they talk in the abstract, they say somebody needs to do something about the mall. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're trying to do.
Finally, as one member of council and being the mayor, what would you say to those voters or citizens of College Station who say, you spent $7 million, it's sitting there with no ROI, that money could have been spent for more fire and police, more whatever reason, whatever other situation might come to be important and a challenge for
Well,
the city?
if you're talking about operational money, that you can't spend this kind of money on ongoing recurring costs. You understand that. So more police, more fire. We're already dealing with that. We had a nice presentation yesterday about our basic budget situation at our planning retreat. So as far as people are concerned about opportunity costs, which is what you're talking about, what could we build it? We could use that money for a rec center. Well, that could be part of the investment in a rec center. Could we use it for an event convention center that some people are talking about? Well, maybe. We have already logged sales for other pieces of land assets that we've sold in the last couple of years since I've been mayor that more than offsets that $7 million. So we're already recouping cash back into this reserve fund. And so it's an opportunity cost. I totally agree. We could have been doing some other things, but what are those? Maybe Public Works building needs to be built. Could we have used it for that? Maybe we could. Well, when we get done planning, we'll see.
Okay. Any other thoughts this morning?
Well, I think this is an important topic, and I'm happy that we have a chance to visit about it. I still think that cities need to take strategic positions sometimes, and I understand that those are controversial. All cities, including our neighbors, take constituent and citizen concerns seriously about the decisions we make. It was a unanimous decision by the council at that time to do this, and I still think it's not a bad decision, and we still have options. And notwithstanding the criticism about what our intent was, our intent is economic development, growth, and stimulation, particularly in that mall area.
Okay. John Nichols, the mayor of College Station. Thanks for the time this morning.
Appreciate it. Thank you.